People are more prosperous but more unhappy. Right? We're living in probably the most prosperous of times, but also possibly the most unhappy. Do you think stress is necessary for studying productively? If you look at people, if you were to search for the happiest person in the world on Google, right? It's not a very credible place to start the search, but let's say you did.
Yeah.
Who do you think shows up? Do you see the people who are the richest? If you want to be happy, practice compassion. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion.
Welcome to Discorso, the IIM podcast. What does it really mean to find happiness? Is it something that you chase or something that you find within? Today, our guest has dedicated his life to answering these profound questions. I am Sabya, and today I am thrilled to be joined by someone who wears many hats, a professor at leading IIMs and the creator of Know Thyself Happiness. Together, we shall navigate how emotional mindfulness can transform our personal lives. Sir, let's begin by Know Thyself Happiness. You describe it as a social endeavor to bring essence to happiness in people in a scientific and secular way. What does those terms actually mean?
Okay. So, firstly, thank you so much, Sabya. Typically when there is such an introduction that's given, you add performance pressure, so thank you for that. Now, one thing that I will, however, probably give a small edit on before we delve into things is often people think that well-being, or when we are teaching well-being, etc., it's about spreading well-being, right? But to be honest, I realized at some point of time that the only person I really truly am doing this for is me. The good thing or the beautiful thing with well-being is that once you start focusing on your well-being, you work more towards other people's well-being. So as soon as you start about really caring about your well-being, kindness, compassion, and all of that good stuff is really a consequence, right? So in a way, all of this is being done. Like, I know we've been in class together, but all of this has been done because every time I speak to you about well-being, irrespective of whether I am able to effectively reach you or not, I am able to effectively reach me for sure. And that's one of the things that I just wanted to mention. The other thing is, recently had some transitions in organization. So my organization that I'd started was Know Thyself Happy, which was really about if you really knew or you really understood yourself, you'll realize that you are already happy. There's just so many barriers you've created to it that you feel unhappy. I've been working on this for like around 5-6 years, 7 years now. And we've developed this framework called HEAL, which I've tested in multiple organizations, which stands for Health, Emotions, Authentic Living. And the organization that I'm now sort of founded is called as HEAL Labs, with the idea to bring this to everybody.
So now you have completely switched over to...
It's actually kind of like you keep transitioning. It's like a rebranding of sorts. Okay. But once you become more sort of well-versed and scientific about everything that you're doing, then you do those transitions.
Yeah. So to give the viewers some context, actually, sir is an IIM grad. IIM Ahmedabad grad to be particular. So you were originally doing a consulting job, after which you switched to this line of work, happiness, mindfulness. So what triggered the switch for you?
So actually the switch had already started back in business school, right? So we are in a business school. In a business school, if you look at it, we were taught with the whole case study methodology, right? Now, most case studies, not all, but most case studies typically end with analyzing the decision-making basis, profit and loss and balance sheet, right? कितना फर्क पड़ा top line पे, कितना फर्क पड़ा bottom line पे, balance sheet पे कितना फर्क पड़ा, cash flow पे कितना फर्क पड़ा, right? Anybody who's in finance at all will know these statements, etc., right? Now, what happens typically is, from my understanding and from looking at people around, is the more you start to analyze businesses basis those parameters, gradually you start analyzing your own life basis those parameters. You start to become a person who weighs every decision on kitna fayda, kitna nuksan, balance sheet mein kitna bada, kitna kam hua, right? And if you look at it, it's a very dangerous mindset, because once you start seeing fayda, nuksan, what really starts to happen is that you become very, very transactional, even in relationships. And honestly speaking, I could see myself becoming that, right? That analytics came into anything. And all of the things that we used to learn when we were kids, right? You have, I don't know if you had moral science back then.
Yes.
The moral science used to talk about almost everything that in a business school you feel fades away.
Absolutely.
Right? You have honesty, kindness, values, you have forgiveness, you have gratitude, right? And it is okay if that is going to the background, but what you see is in this context of analyzing life in P&L and balance sheets, people are not even happy, right? Gradually, people are more prosperous but more unhappy, right? We're living in probably the most prosperous of times, but also possibly the most unhappy. And I sort of felt that during B school, that something wasn't feeling right. And then you go to consulting, you do good projects, but even in consulting, you see actually a lot more of that same thinking, right? And at some point, you either say to yourself, maybe this is the way I should live, or you ask yourself that if this is really not it, then satya kahan hai? Right? As they say, like, jawab kahan chupa hai? And for me, that was the trigger, and I felt like there was a hunch. Looking at people generally who talk of social service and stuff, those people are generally a little more, there's something about them that makes them feel more peaceful in life.
Yes.
So I thought maybe the answer lies in something more humanitarian. And that was the only thought while switching.
Right, sir. So, before you changed your, like, this phase of your life came to be, I believe you had certain KPIs for your happiness.
Sure.
That is work-life balance or personal relationships.
Right.
Has those KPIs changed?
I think all KPIs have changed.
Okay.
Because you remember when we were in class 12th, we were told, अभी 2 साल पढ़ाई कर लो, 12th में शांति आ जाएगी. 12th में पढ़ाई कर ली तो अब IIT कर लो या कुछ कर लो तो शांति आ जाएगी, right? And you used to define KPIs basis the way the world had defined KPIs for you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you live those KPIs for long enough to realize that those KPIs, the KPIs for those of us who maybe, I'm sure everybody here is aware, but is key performance indicators. And I think hidden in that was the idea that performance will lead to well-being, right? So you thought maybe once I accomplish these 10 things in life, I will be founded in well-being. But after a while, there was money, there was promotions, things were circumstantially favorable. But nahi thi shanti. Like you feel there's a missing part to it, right? And then you ask yourself, ki to fir kya kare, right? Then when you venture into self-awareness or you venture into an understanding of how is that Eastern traditions understand happiness, you realize that the KPIs that we were told right from the start and the KPIs that spirituality talks about, they're like poles apart, right? You look at it, conventional wisdom will tell you that एक बार बहुत पैसा होगा, ये होगा, वो होगा, तो आपको पास खुशी होगी, right? True. They say that people who actually think that once they retire and they have enough money, they'll be happy. They're not. Right? There is also this idea, a 1978 experiment in Northwestern University, which was about people who won the lottery. Turns out even lottery winners think that they'll become happier, but it doesn't happen. Right? Because that's what we were thinking. Hugely unfounded.
Yeah. So, actually, in class we discussed a topic where there's a happiness baseline,
right?
And you gave this lottery example,
right?
Like it'll go up, but it'll come down to the same baseline as you were, and you gave an example of the quadriplegic patient also.
Correct.
Can you please elaborate on that?
So, for people who are sort of watching, if you look back at your last pleasant experience, let's say, I'm sure some of you like to have pizza, right? Some people say pizza makes me happy, right? But I ask them that 4 hours after you've had the pizza, do you still feel the same level of upliftment that you did when you had the pizza?
Right.
And if not, then pizza really didn't make you happy, right? Because if you think of how we understand happiness, right? We understand happiness when say, I wish I were happy, I want to be happy. We understand happiness as a state that once we've reached it, it doesn't go away. It's an enduring state, right?
True.
But unfortunately, whether you have pizza or whether you win a lottery, you receive a peak, but that peak goes down, and when it goes down, you come back to where you were before having had the pizza. In fact, in some cases, think of having spent 2 hours on social media, right? You get a lot of those peaks, but 2 hours later, actually your state of how you are feeling is worse than how it was before you started.
Yeah.
What has happened is your steady state experience of life has gone down. So happiness baseline is something, again, there is a term called hedonic treadmill, which is you keep doing the अब मुझे ये मिल जाए, अब मुझे वो मिल जाए, मन कर रहा है ये, मन कर रहा है वो. और हमें ऐसा लगता है कि इनफ टाइम्स अगर हमने मन को संतुष्ट कर दिया तो फिर हम खुश हो जाएंगे.
Right, sir.
मगर they say this word in Hindi, but it's a mrik trishna, a mirage, right?
Mirage.
It's like अब यहाँ, अब यहाँ, अब यहाँ, और कुछ टाइम बाद नहीं हो रहा है. In fact, oftentimes people start to feel like they're going in the other direction.
True.
That is what happiness baselines are about, and the idea therefore of happiness to everybody has to be, how do I improve how I'm feeling steady state, right?
Exactly.
And that is how often people confuse मन को अच्छा लग रहा है versus जीवन में शांति है. दोनों चीज़ें बहुत अलग हैं.
Right. So is mindfulness an avenue to increase that happiness baseline?
Right. So if you look at people, if you were to search for the happiest person in the world on Google, right? It's not a very credible place to start the search. But let's say you did.
Yeah.
Who do you think shows up? Do you see the people who are the richest?
No.
What do you think?
I don't
or
think
famous, right?
Yeah.
So
I would think Dalai Lama would come up.
Dalai Lama, right? Actually, that's a good give. So the person that comes up is Matthew Ricardo, who was the French translator of the Dalai Lama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? So valuable guess.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's impossible to understand or impossible to plug 7 billion people with wires and get to know how they're feeling. But the essence of that is coming back to the idea that what has this person been doing? These entire years, this person has been focusing on only one thing. And that one thing is what was mentioned, I think, by Gulzar ji in the movie Goody. Have you? Well, I know this is probably old age.
Sorry, I have not seen
it.
it.
No, that's right. But there's a movie Goody.
Yeah.
People who are watching this some of us might be aware. It's a movie which had Jaya Bachchan as the actress, and there is a song there, which again you'll remember sometimes you were forced to sing in the morning assembly. And the song was, हमको मन की शक्ति देना, मन विजय करे. Right?
Yes.
Now, the idea of the baseline or the idea of people's experience of life, notice the more they have autonomy and control over the mind, the more उनकी मन पर विजय हो गई है, the more peaceful and happy they feel in life. Right? In fact, World Happiness Report 2022 also brought this point where they said that one of the purest foundational reasons for unhappiness is people's incapacity to be in control of their mind. Do you know somebody who has anxiety? Or
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Many people I know, yeah.
So when people have anxiety, do you think their mind is more in their control or less in their control?
I would believe less in their control.
Right? So as you go down mind wandering, the more you wander off, right, you are actually going away from your own well-being.
Right.
And people who have anxiety, you'll notice they often have, somebody very close to me did, उनका अब ये मन कर रहा है, अब मन ने मन की सुन ली, अब ये मन कर रहा है, मन की सुन ली. आप मन की सुनते गए, मन को तो आपने संतुष्ट कर दिया, मगर आपकी संतुष्टि तो रह गई. And that's what the more mindfulness, right? Mindfulness has many definitions, by the way. You look at Western psychology, there are a lot of definitions. One of the foundational definitions that people follow is mindfulness is the awareness that arises when you pay attention to the present moment non-judgmentally.
Okay.
Right? You'll get reminded of Three Idiots, right? What is a machine?
Yes.
Right? Now, simply put, if I could just summarize it in छोटी एक line, mindfulness is कि मैं जहाँ चाहूँ मैं अपने मन को वहाँ रख सकूँ. मेरा मन मेरे कंट्रोल में हो, बस, और कुछ नहीं है.
Right, sir.
और across religions, across spiritual traditions, इसी चीज़ को बताने की कोशिश की गई है मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग में, इन माई लिमिटेड नॉलेज, कि यार तुम मन को अपने कंट्रोल में कर लो. मन को कंट्रोल में कर लोगे ना, तो शांति ही शांति है.
Right, sir. Very good answer. Sir, in our EI classes, a key theme was to how to avoid compulsions,
right,
like anger, lust, greed. But I have seen personally a lot of people are driven by these things in their career.
Right.
So if you avoid these compulsions, how do you drive yourself to be better?
I see. Let's take anger for example.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes what people say is actually, let me take something even more relevant and controversial. Let me take stress, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you think stress is necessary for studying productively?
I have seen people work way efficiently when they're near the deadline.
They're near the deadline.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When they're really stressed,
Yeah,
you'll notice people feel like, यार जब मेरे को stress मिलता है ना, तब मैं productive होता
Yeah,
हूँ.
the productivity.
Now let me ask you, right? Do you have any hobbies? Anything that you like to do?
I like to read.
You like to read?
Yeah.
When you are reading, are you engaged in the process of reading?
Yes.
So you are productive in the process of reading?
I believe so.
Are you stressed while you're reading?
In the moment, no.
No, right?
No.
Which means that it is possible to be productive
Right, sir.
while not being stressed.
Right, sir.
होता क्या है, अगर आपसे मैं बोलूँ 5 दिन पहले आप पढ़ाई करो तो मन बिल्कुल कंट्रोल में नहीं होता 5 दिन पहले.
Yes.
राइट? मन कहता है यार ये कर लेते हैं, मन कहता है सोशल मीडिया पे चले जाते हैं.
Yes.
मन संयम में नहीं रहता. राइट? अगर मेरा मन संयमित हो तो एक्चुअली आई कैन 5 days ऑल्सो, एंड देयर आर पीपल दैट आई नो who can study 6 days before and be very efficient. They don't need stress to study.
Yeah.
They can be in control of their mind. What typically happens is your sloth,
Sloth.
that starts to dictate your choices.
Right, sir.
Now sloth also is a compulsion, right?
Yeah.
अब मेरा मन नहीं है, अरे ये नहीं करना अभी, है ना?
Biblical
अगर
sin.
मैं मन पे जीत जाऊं, so biblically we were talking about your 7 deadly sins. One of them is also sloth.
Sloth, yes.
If I could win over sloth, I don't need anger to drive me or stress to drive me,
Yeah.
right? The problem is we often use one thing like anger or guilt or stress because we want to take away sloth. Sloth तो चला गया, मगर क्या होगा? आपने एक बार एंग्री अगर आप हुए, आपने एंगर की प्रोपेंसिटी को बढ़ाना शुरू कर दिया. So your general sense of life or general propensity to be angry, that starts to grow.
Right, sir.
What that will now do is, number one, anger is not good for physical health and mental health. So you are creating a hole for yourself. Second, the more you practice it, we already discussed in class, right?
Yeah.
What you practice grows stronger. You practice anger, it will grow stronger, right? Then you will start becoming more and more angry and reactive even at the smaller things. तो end में तो एक सिद्धांत बताया गया है निष्काम कर्म का, कि आप बिल्कुल शांति प्रिय हो, स्थित प्रज्ञ हो, यू आर स्टेशनड इन दैट विजडम. फिर आपने ऑब्जेक्टिव डिसाइड किया, फिर अपने मन को बोला अब ये ऑब्जेक्टिव है, पूरे लग जाओ इसमें.
Sir, we all belong to a B school here, at least in this community.
Sure.
And as we discussed before, we know how to chase profit. We know how to fix the bottom line, how we know how to fix the top line. And in this endeavor, how do you think, we are trying to be fit in a capitalist society,
Right.
where we are chasing profits, we do not care about ethical values as such. How do you think mindfulness and happiness fit into this structure of this world?
Okay. So very good question, and I think it's a question that needs to be addressed because a lot of people, including me, at some point they believe that being calmer or being mindful is really about becoming a sadhu. Right? मतलब अरे जाओ गेंजिस के पास में जाके बैठो करो, right? Now we're in a business school where mindfulness is actually a foundational theme or the value, right? Now if you think of it, a few things. If you are mindful, and I'm again speaking in terms of complete autonomy over the mind, I am more in my control of my emotions, which means, let's say when you are angry,
Yeah.
right? Are your responses to situations more creative or less creative? जब गुस्सा आता है तो क्रिएटिविटी बढ़ती है, कम होती है? कम हो जाती है, राइट? विच मीन्स कि अगर मेरा गुस्सा शांत हो जाए, right, तो मैं ज़्यादा प्रोडक्टिव और क्रिएटिव चीज़ें कर सकता हूँ,
राइट?
अगर मेरा मन पूरी तरह कंट्रोल में आ जाए तो आई कैन एक्चुअली बी वेरी प्रोडक्टिव. एंड नाउ इफ यू लुक एट द लिंकेज ऑफ माइंडफुलनेस विद revered people who've been, there is a word called karm yogi, right? आप historically या religiously भी अगर देखो तो entities like Krishna and all, they were not by the Ganges, right? They were in the real world in a very dirty place, but they were extremely creative, extremely productive. So the more you have autonomy of the mind, the more you are in control of what you do. The second thing that often is, I think, misunderstood. Can you be calm and shout at people? Like, do you need anger necessarily, or can you be completely shant? And if the situation demands, shout at people.
Yeah, if you try to be objective, surely.
Yeah. Now that is another part, right? Mindfulness is not about calmness. People often misunderstand as meekness.
हाँ.
कि अगर ये शांत है तो ये कुछ बोलेगा नहीं, ये कुछ करेगा नहीं. क्यों? ब्रूस ली बहुत शांत था. You look at him, he's very meditative, but he'll give you a punch when it's needed. But you'll notice he also had a lot of control. कब मारना है, कब नहीं मारना, वो मेरे हाथ में होना चाहिए. Circumstance मुझे कंपेल ना करे कि अब मैं ये कर दूं, बिकॉज जब आप गुस्से में होते हो, you lose yourself. Something takes over, and what that something may end up saying or doing completely
not in control.
So I am to saying, in fact, the more emotionally intelligent and mindful you become, the more productive you are. If money is what your objective is, you actually do better work, so you get promotions faster, you earn also more. So I would say it's like perfect for even if you want to have corporate ambitions.
Right, sir. So these days we are seeing mindfulness in general has become a buzzword in the social media.
Right.
Do you think it has been commodified in such a way that it fits in the capitalist framework that we live in?
Right. I think typically what has happened is whatever originates in India goes to the West, gets packaged. Like mindfulness has a program called MBSR, mindfulness based stress reduction. Goes to the West, gets repackaged, gets commodified. There is a price tag on it. And then people from India go there to understand the program, get the certification, and then they're like, we got that certification. Right? Now, unfortunately, if you look at, so I'm also part of Imagine Mindfulness, where one of our endeavors is to make mindfulness accessible. Right. So typically an MBSR program costs $500-$600 for an 8-week program. We try and make sure that we are accessible to people. So for example, I was lucky I did the program almost for no cost because it was barely anything, and this was really a choice from the heart to spread it. Right,
sir.
So that way is what happens is, see, the problem is never money. The problem is when service becomes consequential to money rather than the other way around.
Okay.
Right? Let's say मैं आपको पढ़ा रहा हूँ, right? मैं किसी भी इंस्टीट्यूट में कुछ भी पढ़ाता हूँ, so I receive an honorarium for it.
Yeah.
Right? But what matters is that my aim should be on serving people. Money should be a consequence, not the motivation. Right? And that has unfortunately crept in, and now it's become more like paisa do shanti lo. Right? And that commodification is dangerous. And fortunately, there are forces that are trying on this side also.
Yeah.
But yeah, spirituality unfortunately is becoming very commodified.
This leads to my next question. In the corporate world, we often see employee under like heavy duress and stress.
Right.
And the organizations generally they try to bring in mindfulness coaches, teachers, faculties to to encourage them or to teach them about the topic. So do you think it has become an unhealthy system to cope with the corporate duress, rather than raising their voice against it?
When you say it's become unhealthy, you mean that now people are using mindfulness as a band-aid to sort of camouflage or to put a blanket on all the other problems that are being created?
Yes.
I think yes and no. Yes, because there are, by the way, now organizations in the US, some of which are mandating people to take an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program.
Yeah.
Because they see that there is a productivity and a health money, or the amount of money being spent on employee health. Yeah. Both those are beneficial for the organization, right? So I think typically the life cycle of anything getting introduced starts by the practical value that they bring to the table. Right? For example, when it comes to a very weird example, when it comes to brushing, typically people go to or start caring about their teeth not as preventive but as curative. दांत पर ध्यान तब जाता है जब कैविटी आ जाती है, राइट? बट फायदा क्या होता है कि आपका गया तो ध्यान, और एक बार ध्यान गया तो हो सकता है आप उसके बारे में और सोचने लगो. तो आई थिंक द कॉर्पोरेट्स मे एक्चुअली हैव अल्टीरियर मोटिव्स व्हिच आर मोर ऑन द प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस. But I think it's good that at least those introductions are helping people acquaint themselves with these new things. And then once you give it to them, they might start using it in ways that was not necessarily the organizational core intent to begin with.
Right, sir.
So I agree that is a trend. but I also see that I'm okay with that trend because कहीं से तो शुरू हुआ.
Yes. So there are people who conflate religion with spirituality or mindfulness in general.
Right.
Do you think there exists a line between it, and if yes, how thick of a line?
Okay. Do you play chess?
Yes, I do play chess.
You play chess, right?
Yeah.
What's the objective of chess? Like if you are, what's the first, like करना क्या है, game का objective क्या है?
Basically to capture the other side's king.
To checkmate. Capture the other side's king, right? Are there certain rules that are taught to people when they are early in their chess career? कि ऐसे खेलो वैसे खेलो, क्या होते हैं वो rules कुछ? अगर आपको
always you should check for threats.
You should check for threats.
Yeah.
People will also tell you castling कर लिया करो, king को save करना है, एक side रख लो. मतलब I used to play chess back then and even sometimes now. They also say open the center. ताकि you can have your pieces move around, right? Now you will notice that when you look at the people at the very top, like Magnus Carlsen, right now we have World Chess Championship going on, right? It's a huge thing. Those people do not play as per those rules. Why? Because they have now realized objective is checkmate. The rules were simply ways in which a person can become more efficient towards that objective. But at some point, once you have mastered the rules, then you also have the liberty to break the rules, because in the end, objective is not the rules.
Right.
Objective is the end point of checkmate. In the same way, I would say spirituality or the end point was tried to contextualize by different religions by giving a set of rules. Because let's say you were new to chess and I just said you have to checkmate, right? You'll be like, मतलब कैसे करूँ, क्या करूँ, how do I approach it, right? And the intent of religion was always to give you an approach, and therefore different people can give different approaches. But what happens is after a while people start to believe that religion is the objective, even though it was a means to the objective, right? Now, you look at any and every religion, just as you look at any and every rule, people interpret things basis their understanding of the rules.
Right.
Suppose किसी किताब में लिखा हुआ है कास्लिंग करो, तो इंसान कहेगा क्वीन साइड करूँ या किंग साइड करूँ, कि उसकी वो जानकारी है, राइट? इन द सेम वे जो स्क्रिप्चर्स हैं अलग अलग रिलीजन्स के, उनको लिखा गया था किसी इंटेंशन से, मगर आप उसको इंटरप्रेट करते हो द वे यू आर. Right? Now that has again become a little bit, or it becomes a barrier to spirituality, because then you start fighting on the rule. Right? लोग लड़ते नहीं, ये रूल ठीक है ना, ये रूल अच्छा है. अरे भाई रूल छोड़ो, ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है? Right? And that is where sometimes this distinction is not as fairly understood. And because it's not fairly understood, people fight on the differences. But if you now look at every religion from this point of view, हर रिलीजन आपको यही बता रहा है कि मन पर जीतना है. Right? You look at Christianity, 7 deadly sins. Right? You look at Hinduism. Right? You look at Sikhism. You look at Islam also. Every religion is trying to talk about this. The only problem is some religions have elaborated it really, really well. Some religions may not have elaborated it well. Some religions are speaking it a certain way. Some religions are speaking it in another way. The problem is we are all different people, and there are some thoughts which we are more easily able to think and agree with, and that's where it becomes a problem, right? अंत में मन की जीत करनी है, मगर वो उसके लिए आदमी सोचता है यार ये फॉलो करना जरूरी है, वो फॉलो करना जरूरी है.
True. So now that we have talked about chess, I would ask you this question. Last year, Dingleren won the World Chess Championship against Jan.
Right.
Did you see his reaction after winning the game?
Right.
It was heartbreaking to see.
Yes.
Like an expedition, so long, so hard, so tough, and after that, when you reach your final point, your destination, you are heartbroken.
Right.
Why do you think that happens, sir?
Now, if you think back at your last achievement, right, the last thing that you achieved that you wanted to achieve, right? Do you feel the same joy that you did back then at that achievement? If you look at it today, like, is that level of joy still there?
No.
Not really.
It fades away.
क्या होता है, मतलब कई लोग ये एनालॉजी देते हैं, आदमी माउंट एवरेस्ट को सपोज जिंदगी भर गोल बना के चलता है, चल रहा है एंड में पहुंच गया माउंट एवरेस्ट पे. अब माउंट एवरेस्ट पे पहुंच गया है, यूं है और यूं हवा चल रही है माउंट एवरेस्ट पे. right? अब वो कहता है अब क्या करूँ, right? Ding Liren's last reactions after the game were, I think I could see a lot of relief that this got over, right? And that relief was like जो चाहिए था वो मिल गया, मगर the conflation or how we conflate success and happiness, maybe that realization also comes to people when they reach success.
Right.
And that sometimes realizing that this didn't take me where I was hoping it will take me, that cognitive dissonance becomes the reason why people start to feel not so good about even the success itself.
Right, sir.
And that could be a potential reason. Again, I don't know. I have never spoken to him personally.
Yeah.
But I think it could be a potential.
Yeah. Because in that scene, if you do not know nothing about chess, and if you see that scene, you won't know who won.
Yeah. Right.
That's the beauty of it. Let's not sidetrack. Sir, we know that Osho is charging hefty fees for these happiness courses,
right,
mindfulness courses.
Right.
What is your general opinion on these kind of courses? And
to be honest, 6-7 years back when I started my own courses, I was very hell-bent on not letting commerce become even leave centricity. It shouldn't touch anything, right? So I actually started my courses by taking online 6-week courses where I didn't used to charge anything.
Okay.
Everything was basis volunteering. So there is a very nice model, and I think I wish I had created this, but I hadn't. There's a very nice model. There are these 10-day silent retreats called Vipassana, right? Which are in and around different parts. And there is one in Bodh Gaya, by the way, right next to our campus. You go there for a 10-day silent retreat. The organization solely works only on people contributing once they've had that experience.
Right.
And there is no force in contribution. Nobody calls you, no marketing. People just voluntarily contribute. Why? Because they're like, I've experienced this, now I want others to experience this. And actually the organization is running sustainably. Like, I don't know how many, they have 300 odd centers in the world. An organization which is not charging and being sustainable at that scale, like, can you imagine how effective it's going to be or how much it's benefiting the world, right? सेवा भाव या दान का भाव जग रहा है लोगों में, ये नहीं है कि पैसे दो शांति लो, right? So I started my online courses also on a similar nature. And I started to I was like, I don't want to charge, but I also realized one thing from my personal experience. If I do something for free, I will not do it. Right? कई बार भी स्कूल में लोग कहते हैं यार इन चीज़ों के ग्रेड्स नहीं होने चाहिए. प्रॉब्लम ये अगर ग्रेड्स नहीं होंगे तो आप ज़्यादा क्लास में ध्यान भी नहीं दोगे. So I started doing a 7,500 rupees security deposit so that people submit it, and if they are disciplined, then I return it back at the end.
Okay.
So that then if they feel like voluntarily contributing, they can. But अगर आप disciplined नहीं हो तो मैं वो पैसे रख लूँगा. Honestly रखे नहीं, but वो एक dagger थी लोगों के पास, right? One component of charging money, I think, which often people talk about is it's important for a person to be disciplined, because only when they see that they've spent something do they actually focus on it more. Right? How hefty the amount is. Now even Vipassana, by the way, reached that stage of contribution later.
Okay.
From what I know, initially they used to also charge, but what they used to charge was on operational costs.
Got it.
So some of these organizations they're not sustainable enough to have operational costs. Because unless you don't have that, let's say your motive is to spread well-being,
right,
but you are not able to achieve sustainability just because of principle कि मैं पैसे नहीं लूँगा, तो आपका ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ही बंद हो जाएगी. तो जो आप करना चाह रहे थे वो तो हुआ ही नहीं. तो आपको एक स्टेज पे कहीं ना कहीं बीच में आना पड़ता है. It is your honesty as to how much you make it commercial and how much you make it bare minimum, right? And I think when I went to the website of Osho, I felt, I don't know honestly the exact prices as much, but मेरे को जो थोड़े बहुत दिखे, मुझे लगा 3-4 दिन के लिए they are taking 15K, 20K etc. मुझे लगता है operationally उतने की requirement हो सकता है, वो होती हो, तो वो बहुत मतलब they are not ripping people off.
Got it, sir.
And this is where I see there is role to play in how money can be a motivator, but the line is very thin, and that line only the person who's drawing the line knows. Right? और वो आप अगर करो ठीक से तो फिर it's fine. I think it's okay to have that aspect. That I won't call as commercialization.
Right, sir.
That I will call as operational sustainability. model.
So I would also say it's very difficult to put a price tag on such things.
Correct.
You don't know how people value this.
Correct.
So absolutely, it makes sense.
Right.
My next question would be regarding astrology, sir.
Astrology?
Yeah.
Acha. Okay.
These days, like whenever I'm going through my Instagram or YouTube, I see these astrology ads from Astro Talk, and they constantly talk about happiness, mindfulness. So I don't know how these two connect. And do you see a connection within the both of them?
I see. I will speak from a place of limited knowledge on this, but I will still try and attempt this, right? So I have somebody actually quite close to me who is an astrologer. My partner's uncle, so he's an astrologer, and he has some videos on astrology. I once discussed astrology with him, and I said, what's the purpose of life? मतलब आप astrology कर रहे हो, but what is it getting to? Right? He mentioned this idea that in the end, the answer to life is in your capacity to accept, let go and move on, which is complete control over the mind. Right. Let's say a circumstance doesn't work out. Mind control says that अब मेरे को इसमें कोई फायदा है सोचने का और अगर नहीं है तो मैं आगे बढ़ूँ. ये आइडियल एंड है जिसमें आपको किसी को ले जाना है, राइट? बट क्या होता है दैट फॉर सम पीपल एक बड़ी अच्छी सेइंग है कि योग से पहले भोग जरूरी है,
राइट?
बिफोर यू बिकम और बिफोर यू सॉर्ट ऑफ ट्राई एंड अंडरस्टैंड द truths of life, you need to experience the untruths. Right? What astrology is trying to do, astrology is trying to make your circumstances a little more favorable. Because if your circumstances are not favorable, you will keep thinking कि अगर ये circumstance favorable हो गया, उसके बाद खुशी मिलेगी.
Right, sir.
और वो हो नहीं रहा है तो आप उसके पीछे भागते रहोगे. Astrology, even though it has limited capability in altering what your destiny is, what it's trying to do is it's trying to make you feel more comfortable with your circumstances so that you can then look beyond them. Right, because sir. If let's say you want to really get into an IIT, right? I know people whose dream was to get into an IIT. Somebody actually very close to me, also an influencer, he said that he was hell-bent on getting to IIT, but he didn't make it.
Right.
And then his entire life for the next 2 decades were in underconfidence. कि यार अब मैं वैसा नहीं हूँ, मेरे में उतनी क्षमता नहीं है, I'm not that capable, right? And that became the center of his life, to the point that now he's married, he has kids, etc. So I think 40, 45. He's still grappling with it. अब सोचो अगर उसका IIT में हो गया होता, right? तो उसको रियलाइज होता कि यार IIT में हो गया लेकिन अब भी कुछ नहीं हुआ, तो फिर वो अगला कदम लेता देखने के लिए कि यार तो मैं क्या करूँ. बट अभी क्या है, अब वो IIT चिपक गया है सर में, right? It's now stuck. What astrology often helps you do is to be able to make you experience or be comfortable enough with circumstance so you can then look beyond it to the truth of life, which is eventually acceptance, equanimity, control over the mind, etc. So that's my limited take on astrology. And yeah, like I think if you understand the purpose of astrology, then you don't know it, then you don't need astrology.
So I have a small point of contention there.
Sure.
I would think constantly trying to know what is going to happen in the future, or if you're going to achieve what you're working for.
Right.
Like constantly you sit in the class, right? कि फल की चिंता ना करो, बस कर्म करो. Because it is also kind of you're feeding your compulsion.
Right.
Constantly. So what do you think about this, sir?
Yeah, you're right. Right. And this is the trap of astrology.
Yeah.
Because there are people who after a while, they go to astrology for every second thing.
Yeah.
अब ये हो गया, अब क्या होने वाला है, ये कैसा होगा, ठीक हो जाएगा या नहीं. यहाँ पे आपका एस्ट्रोलॉजर क्या है या एस्ट्रोलॉजर का इंटेंशन क्या है वो मैटर करता है. बिकॉज आफ्टर अ व्हाइल एस्ट्रोलॉजर बिकम्स ऑलमोस्ट लाइक अ गॉड फिगर टू यू. अब वो बताएंगे क्या करना है, कैसे करना है, एक्सेट्रा. द एस्ट्रोलॉजर, इफ दे अंडरस्टैंड द पर्पस ऑफ एस्ट्रोलॉजी वेरी वेल, इफ इट इज द पर्पस आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट, दैट इज दे विल नो कि अब ये सर्कमस्टांस है जिसमें से इस इंसान को बेटर फील करवाना है. And they will also know कि मैं इतना ही करूँगा, इसके आगे नहीं करूँगा. प्रॉब्लम क्या हुई है, astrology has also become commercialized. Yes. And commercialization feeds on human misery. True. Right? You commercialize कर रहे हो तो आप लाइक यार इसको चिंता में ही रहने दो, क्योंकि अब मैंने इसको अगला सोल्यूशन बता दिया, अब उसके बाद फिर से आएगा तो फिर से और मेरे पैसे बन रहे हैं. So the world of astrology also was created, and all of these things were created way back, right?
Yes, yes.
all these were created in the context of certain ethics. अब ethics तो पता नहीं कहाँ है. Astrology has become center.
Sir, my next question would be, sir, you worked in Deloitte for a couple of years, I believe.
Yeah, monitor Deloitte, correct.
Yes. So if you could go back to that younger version of yours,
Right.
what advice would you give?
Multiple advices actually. I think one thing would be, there was I don't know if this was IIT Kanpur or some place like that, where there was a professor who passed away. The last statements that he gave when he passed away was, take care of your health.
Yeah.
And as soon as he said that, he got a heart attack. ऐसा कुछ हुआ है. I don't know exact details, but ये हुआ है कुछ, I think 1 साल हो गया होगा इस चीज़ को. One advice that I would strongly give myself is, the time that you spend on yourself or your health is not going to be unproductive.
Right,
The
sir.
rate of return on investment on the time spent on health is more than any mutual fund can ever guarantee. Right?
Right, sir.
So take care of your health is an important one, and mental health, right? अगर तब जाके किया होता, right? So it would have been much more smoother. That's one. Second, I think often क्या होता है, just speaking personally, right? I did engineering, MBA, consulting, and there is a 3 Idiots dialogue on this, by the way. Like पहले engineering की, फिर MBA किया, फिर अमेरिका में जाके बैंक में नौकरी की, right? Now honestly, I disagree with the 3 Idiots point. Why? Because when you are in 11th and 12th, you don't know yourself well, right? So you make decisions basis how you know yourself to be. Right? Then you go to graduation, then you know yourself more, and when you know yourself more, maybe you realize something that मेरे को ये नहीं करना था, वो करना था, right? And as you keep growing through years, your self-awareness keeps growing more and more and more, and your self-awareness can keep giving you newer directions, right? For example, right now I am in the field of mindfulness and well-being, and my work is to spread it to as many youngsters as I can, right? As many corporates as I can, really hone into the idea of people understanding well-being, right? I didn't know this back in 11th, right? 11th में तो मैं physics पढ़ रहा था. What happens is, this is I think also something that couple of interns of the McDonald's CEO, they were in an interview I saw where he was asked, what's your one learning from life or whatever, and he said this, like, don't ever get stuck that the next goal is the final goal or is the way you will be, because you will keep changing, right? So let's say you have reached a thing A, or you have A as an aspiration. Don't think कि अब यही है या ये नहीं है. कई लोग होता है एक चीज़ नहीं हुई ना, यार यही सत्य था, ये नहीं हुआ तो अब कुछ. So what I would tell that person was that take care of your health and don't think that the next achievement is going to be the determinant of your life.
Yeah.
It never is. Right? And you have, like, if I look at me, I could have never imagined. I was the last person to ever be an entrepreneur, which I am now.
Okay.
I was the last person to actually go around and speak to people about well-being, right?
Yeah.
I was a thorough analytical consulting kind of a person, right?
Yeah.
I changed and everybody else too will,
Yeah.
right? The third thing, however, that's an important part is, this is a corollary to number 2. That doesn't mean that you don't pursue what you feel is relevant for you at that moment. A lot of times what happens is, कई लोग ये सुनेंगे कहेंगे यार पता तो है ही नहीं, तो कुछ करके भी क्या फ़ायदा,
Right.
शांति रहते हैं, बैठे रहते हैं, उससे भी कुछ नहीं होगा फ़ायदा. तो कर्म तो आपको करना ही है, राइट? वो कर्म कहाँ ले जाएगा छोड़ दो, उसको अपने आप डिसाइड करना.
Right. Sir, what I believe is mindfulness is a very individualist concept.
Right.
Do you think it has consequences in the larger societal issues,
Right.
in the geopolitics world, or in general societal evils?
One of the things that we often talk about within the realm of mindfulness is the idea of kindness, is the idea of morality, is the idea of ethics. There is a paper by one of the persons that worked with at some point of time, which links mindfulness and moral reasoning. The more you become mindful, if you now think of it, right, the more मेरा मन मेरे कंट्रोल में है, right, उतना कम मैं चीज़ों के पीछे भागने के लिए विवश होऊंगा. The less compulsive I will become, the less egoistic I will become, which means when I speak to Sabir, the more mindful I am, the more respect I will feel in my heart for him, right? So, and when that is true, then I will also try that every conversation I have with Sabya also leads to his well-being, right? Because अगर मैंने सोचा यार मेरे को खुश रहना है, उसको दुखी मैं कर भी दूँ, आप तो वापस उसी में आ गए, मन के विवश हो गए, अब मेरी नीड्स उसकी नीड्स, right? If people became, and there are courses on mindfulness for leadership, right? If people became more mindful, you would have heard in leadership there are several phrases. One of them is servant leadership.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
वो सुना ही होगा
सुना ही
peaceful,
होगा, yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
There is mindful leadership. Now, what is that? I have completely let go of my egoistic, narcissistic self.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I actually worry about or care about other people's well-being. If mindfulness can actually spread to more people, there's a very nice quotation, I think, by Dalai Lama where he talks about if you want to be happy, practice compassion. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. In essence, if the world became more mindful, it will become happier. It will also become kinder, right? So, practicing, and it will definitely become more productive.
Yes, sir.
We already established that,
Yes,
right?
sir, yes, sir, yes.
So, imagine how much cohesion. There is a very nice case study on this company, I think, Detroit manufacturing unit. I don't know exact details. Which said that people were made to practice mindfulness 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes twice a day for 3 years. Productivity went up some 80-100% of the firm. Absenteeism went down by 70-80% because it helps health. And attrition or people leaving the firm, that also went down. Why? Because आदमी छोड़ता क्यों है? मन नहीं लग रहा है अब यहाँ पे, है ना? या मन को दुख हो रहा है. अब आपने मन को ही जीत लिया अगर, तो फिर आपको वो चीज़ उतना दुख देगी नहीं, आपको उतना डिसंगेज लगेगा नहीं. यू विल फील. सो लाइक आई डोंट नो, आई पॉसिबली डोंट नो ऑफ एनी अदर थिंग which can be as productive for the world, for myself, for everything else than this is.
Certainly. So, what you have taken so many sessions over the years.
Sure.
What are the common lies about mindfulness that you witness, or generally people that think that is true but is not in real life?
I see. So I think one of the things that people often relate things like mindfulness, etc., to are religion. So people believe that it will make you more orthodox. It will make you more religious in nature, right? And to be honest, I am personally one of those people who wants logic in everything. I am not a person who will believe in anything, right? If you tell me कि सब जगह भगवान बसते हैं, मैं कहूँगा please prove it to me. Right? So what people think is that if I become more mindful, I'll become more illogical or irrational.
Right.
Like, it's actually exactly the opposite. Right? So that's one myth that people have when it comes to mindfulness, right? Second, the myth is that people believe, and I am in awe of the fact that this institution has mindfulness as yoga as one of the top credit courses, right? Which is amazing to know, because people often believe that this is something which correlates only to, you know, कोई गुरुजी कहीं है या कोई कुछ कहीं है, right? People also believe it's for monks, etc. Right?
Yes.
चलिए हो गए. I love my partner. I have a family, love my parents, love my brother. I'm not going to leave them.
Yeah.
So it's not going to make you secluded from society. It's not going to make you a recluse. Right? Again, a misconception.
Yeah.
Right? And I think these misconceptions are beginning to wither away.
Right.
And mindfulness does a very good job at being able to scientifically do so. Right? It doesn't require faith basis. मैं कह रहा हूँ सांस पर ध्यान दो. अब सांस में ना भगवान है ना कुछ है, आप ध्यान दे रहे हो, है क्या? ओके फाइन.
मेरा मन.
And then you realize that आपको सांस में ध्यान देते थे. I asked a little while back after that, like, how are you feeling? People are like, अच्छा लग रहा है. मैंने तो नहीं बोला भगवान में बिलीव करने को, लेकिन अच्छा लग रहा है. वो भगवान से आपको पास भी ले आता है अगर आप स्पिरिचुअल या रिलीजियस इन नेचर हो. बट यू डोंट हैव टू नेसेसरली be a particular way. Right? So that's again part of the misconceptions.
So I think generally, like in these schools, it is a very high stress environment.
Right.
And luckily, our college, it has institutionalized mindfulness sort of.
Sure.
What policy changes do you want to see at the government level to imbibe this culture within?
Right. So I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
There is a there is a program which was commissioned by the Capacity Building Commission called Mission Karm Yogi. Right? I know personally that it's gotten implemented in postal services, I think, police, and multiple other government agencies, right? So the understanding, and by the way, Karm Yogi, or the genesis of Karm Yogi, if it's okay, I'll take a 1 minute detour on it, right? क्या होता है कर्म योगी? हमने बहुत सुना है कर्म योगी बनो. Now, one of the pathways to becoming or to building autonomy over the mind is this idea of duties. Right? We often see in Bollywood, ये तो मेरा धर्म है माँ जी. Right? Now, धर्म है का क्या मतलब है? आप अगर अपनी लाइफ में ड्यूटीज डिसाइड कर लो कि ये 4 चीज़ें हैं या ये 5 चीज़ें हैं जिसमें मेरे अपने मन में जो अपने मन को लगाना है, फिर आपका मन उसमें सुख ढूंढे या दुख, वो काफी फेमस है, सुख दुखे समय कृत्वा लाभा लाभो जया जय, राइट? सुख ढूंढे या दुख, आप कहोगे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, मेरा यही कर्तव्य है, तो मुझे कर्तव्य निभाना है. यू डू दैट फॉर लॉन्ग इनफ एंड यू विल नोटिस यू आर विनिंग ओवर द माइंड. क्यों? क्योंकि अब आप मन की नहीं सुन रहे. आपने मन को बोला ये कर्तव्य है, तो कहीं भी जाएगा तेरे को मैं वापस यहीं लेकर आऊंगा. मेडिटेशन में भी यही करते हैं, जब कर रहे हैं मन कहीं भागा, वापस जब पे ले आए. Once you sort of do this every day, you realize you're building autonomy over the mind. So you don't have to meditate to be mindful. You can simply define your duties. And once you define your duties, then you're like, मेरा मन इसमें सुख ढूंढे या दुख कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, मुझे ये करना है. At the policy level, this has 2 implications. First, how do you make employees, etc., better understand the fact that no matter what work they are doing, they can find peace through that work. Right? हर काम के 10 डिलीवरेबल हैं. अगर आप उन 10 डिलीवरेबल को अपना धर्म या अपना कर्तव्य मान लो, तो फिर आप मन को आदि बना दोगे वहाँ पे लगने के. फर्स्ट इम्प्लीकेशन. Second implication in public policy is there are, for example, you would have heard of the case of Bhutan. Bhutan doesn't talk about GDP. Right? It talks about GNH. Right? Gross National Happiness. I am, honestly, that's part of my work. I am working towards now getting more in touch with deeper aspects and trying to work towards building larger curriculums or work with ministries potentially. That's not reached yet. That's the aim. That if we could also develop along with measuring GDP and per capita income, we also develop in some organizations. We start at the organizational level of measuring the happiness of organizations. Right? That is a policy level implementation from where it begins to take a national form. Right, sir. Right? So it's really important, right? Because then you become more in control. You are working towards people's happiness. In the end, governance का मकसद क्या है? ये है ना कि लोग खुश रहें. तो अगर आपका वो एंड मकसद है, आप सोच रहे हो पैसा जरिया बनेगा, बट आप मेजर करो और मेजर करके फोकस ऑन हैप्पीनेस. आई थिंक वी आर रीचिंग देयर. 20 years from now, hopefully we'll get there.
Sir, for our viewers, it is not possible for everyone to do a mindfulness course, right?
Right.
So, what are the general tips that you would give them that they can inculcate in their everyday lives to be more mindful or to increase their baseline happiness?
I see. Listen to your dadi nani.
Okay.
Like if you remember dadi nani ना, जब हम खाना खाते थे, तो क्या कहती थी दादी खाना खाते समय? जब बात करो तो व्हाट डिड शी यूज्ड टू से?
जो करना है एक काम करो,
एक समय पर एक काम करो, राइट? मतलब हमारे तो डांट भी पड़ती थी, खाना खाते समय बात नहीं करेगा. माय नानी राइट नाउ, शी एम्फसाइजेस ऑन द आइडिया दैट 32 बार चबाना है. कभी सुना है आपने? नाउ ऑनेस्टली मुश्किल है. शी ऑल्सो यूज्ड टू से आंत का काम दांत से. That instead of your intestine having to work, you make your teeth work.
Yes.
The more you chew, the better. Now, why were they saying it? Right? What's the reason they're saying it? Right? It's very simple. What she's trying to, okay. What they are trying to say. अगर हम एक समय पर एक चीज करेंगे, तो आपने एक ऑब्जेक्टिव डिसाइड कर लिया अपना. अब मेरा मन भागे, आप उसको वापस उस चीज़ पर ला रहे हो.
राइट सर.
हम एक एक्टिविटी करते हैं और मेरे खुद के यूट्यूब चैनल पे उस एक्टिविटी का वीडियो है, विच विल कम. जिसमें हम एक किशमिश को याद होगा क्लास में, वी ईट वन किशमिश फॉर अराउंड 10-12 minutes, राइट. अब द आइडिया इज नॉट दैट यू स्पेंड ईटिंग वन किशमिश फॉर 10-12 minutes, बट द आइडिया देयर वाज, जब मैं किशमिश खा रहा हूँ तो मैं पूरा ध्यान अपना किशमिश पर दे रहा हूँ. इन द सेम वे आप हर पल अपना ऑब्जेक्टिव डिसाइड कर लो, और फिर वो ऑब्जेक्टिव आपकी साधना है, वो ऑब्जेक्टिव आपकी मेडिटेशन है. सपोज आपका ऑब्जेक्टिव है, इस समय मैं और सब भी बात कर रहे हैं, राइट. अभी आपका ऑब्जेक्टिव है कि आपको पूरी तरह इन्वॉल्व होना है, और आपका मन अगर कहीं जाए, इधर जाए उधर जाए, तो उसको आप वापस लेकर आओगे, राइट. द प्रिंसिपल ऑफ माइंडफुलनेस इज अगेन मन पर कंट्रोल. मन पर कंट्रोल मतलब मैंने डिसाइड कर लिया ये कर रहा हूँ मैं, अब कुछ भी करूँ मैं दिन भर में, मन को उस पर रखूँगा. तो वन थिंग एट अ टाइम is the pathway to peace. Now, if you notice, there is one person that almost all of our viewers will know of, who works for 18 hours a day, supposedly, and whenever you see him in any public broadcast, I very closely observed him when he was in the Republic Day का retreating, what is it called? I'm not getting the phrase. जो 3 दिन बाद होता है रिपब्लिक डे के, एक मीटिंग रिट्रीट और दैट. आई वाज लाइक, इस समय तो ही इज जस्ट सिटिंग देयर, राइट. चाहे तो इस समय वो कुछ कर सकते हैं, फाइल का काम कर ले, किसी से बात कर लें, बट नहीं, वो वहाँ बैठे हुए हैं, वो पूरी चीज़ को सचेतना पूर्वक विद फुल अवेयरनेस देख रहे हैं. वो किसी कंट्री में जाते हैं, किसी क्राउड के पास, आप देखोगे जब वो लोगों से बात कर रहे हैं, वो बात करते वक्त उनका पूरा ध्यान है, वो छोटी छोटी चीज़ें पकड़ लेते हैं, राइट. तो लोगों को लगता है यार एक समय पर एक चीज़ तो मुझे, भैया आप देखो कोई इंसान है जो 18 घंटे काम कर रहा है, उसके मन में इतना कंट्रोल है कि अब वो जो सोच रहा है वो एक चीज़ कर रहा है. उनकी प्रोडक्टिविटी को अगर आपको मैच करना है तो आप एक समय पर एक चीज़ शुरू करो. अभी क्या होता है, खाना खाते समय फ़ोन करते समय काम करते समय बात करते समय खाना,
और बीच में टीवी चल रहा है,
राइट. आपने अपने मन को अगर डिस्ट्रैक्ट होने का ही आदी बना दिया, तो मन तो अभ्यास का परिणाम है. जो अभ्यास करोगे वैसा मन होता चला जाएगा.
Thank you, sir. This has been a meaningful conversation. I can't thank you enough for having come here and give this insightful advice to us. Your journey has been like truly inspiring to all of us. Thank you for sharing them with us.
Well, thank you, and I feel I don't know, a lot of times it's not mentioned enough, but there is gratitude to the fact that I was, like, I say this both for political correctness or not, but I feel gratitude that these ideas are being spoken about and you considered them worthy to be discussed and spoken of. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the team which is behind it, who's organizing all of this. I thoroughly enjoyed speaking to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.